Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome to Skypodcast episode 2. Devin here.
Tyler here.
And we would just like to once again say thank you so much for watching our character builds, and we're super excited to get started with this podcast. Today we are going to talk about our philosophy on character building and how you can create your own character builds just like we do. But first of all, we just again wanted to say thank you and kind of go over the state of the channel a little bit. So over the past couple months, our subscription rates have gone way up. We've got almost 4,000 subscribers right now. Thank you guys so much. We had zero idea that this would ever happen. We basically just started this channel off as a digital library for our favorite builds over the years. And we're super excited that you guys enjoy our content a lot. Just a couple business items, I guess, is the first thing, a lot of you have been asking for a Discord. And we are happy to announce that we are going to start up a Skypothesis Discord server very soon, so just keep looking on YouTube for a community post about that. Also, we have a survey that we're about to send out as well for your favorite character builds of ours that we're excited to send out and get your opinions on.
Yeah, we'd like your feedback for Sky Podcast Episode 3, which will be more about our past builds and future builds. But yeah, like Devin said, it's been really fun. I'm reading all of your comments and finding a community that's equally engaged with Skyrim Roleplay 10 years after the game's released. It's been really fun. So for this Sky Podcast episode, we just want to talk about the things that we've found that help us build characters. What makes a character build good, and which builds do we feel are our best, and just the basic rules that we try to follow to make a good character build.
Yeah, we're super excited to share that with you because it's something that we really like to do, and we've definitely been able to form this community of a bunch of like-minded people like us. So we hope you enjoy this video. But yeah, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but we wanted to just talk a little bit about like our history, why we decided to make this channel. Back last year in October, we were just meeting and talking about Skyrim character builds, talking about like Fudge Muppet builds and other YouTubers who make builds, and we're like, dang, they've kind of dwindled a little bit and not many people are making a lot of builds anymore. And we realized, hey, we make a ton of builds, we've just never really shared them before.
Yeah, and we've been long-time lurkers of online forums like the Tamriel Vault, and we really loved the level of care that went into the presentation of the build. Not just like making a good character build, but also taking pride in how it's presented and making that kind of an art form in itself. So that was inspired by some of the absolutely amazing builds that you see on the Tamriel Vault Hall of Fame. And so we wanted to bring that level of care and attention to detail to video format on YouTube. So as we were kind of ideating this channel, we developed the 3 pillars of a good character.
And those 3 pillars are going to be kind of the focus of this Sky Podcast today. And hopefully it will help you guys make builds that you feel really proud of and that you would like to share with other people as well. Because once again, when we get this Discord server up, we would love to hear the builds that you guys have made. It's super fun to just share as a community. But anyways, those 3 pillars are as follows. Number 1, cool aesthetics. We love really good combos of armor and clothing and stuff like that. If you haven't noticed, we a lot of the time put a lot of priority actually into the armor, even if it's a lot weaker than another option. We think that the aesthetic is one of the biggest pillars of a good character.
Yeah, and the second one is functional gameplay. So it's really fun making a character that looks cool, but it has to function. The character has to be able to play the game to complete the quests in the game, or at least whichever ones are relevant to the character. So it's got to work as a character.
Exactly. And then the last one is engaging roleplay. So if you play the game and you're not able to really roleplay, really get into the mind of the character, it's a lot less fun for us. Creating a good backstory and the roleplay decisions of what the character is going to do in the world That's super, super important. So we put equal weight on all three of those things: cool aesthetics, functional gameplay, and engaging roleplay.
So there were a lot of character builds that we had planned, but we left them on the cutting room floor because they weren't quite good enough in one of these three categories. It really is like a three-legged stool. If one of those legs is missing, then it just collapses. So, and this is just kind of the three design pillars that we try to stick to and to try to create our builds and make them as good as they can be.
So the first one, we're going to go kind of in depth on each one of these as well. And the first one that we're really going to look at is cool aesthetics and why it's so important. Because if you don't like looking at your character, it's not going to be a fun playthrough. If you just have a boring set of armor, it's really hard to kind of get in the right mood to play, at least for us, and we know for a lot of you from your comments. For us, getting those super cool kill cams and seeing your character in action is one of the most satisfying payoffs of the grind.
Oh, yeah. So on the Switch, I was playing through as the Oblivion Sentinel, which, by the way, is one of your coolest aesthetic combos, I think.
I'm pretty proud of that one.
You came up with that one, and it was so cool. So I had to do a playthrough, and I did it on the Switch. And I was in, I think it was Hobbs Fall Cave. It's the ice cave with the Necromancers, and there's like a pit in the middle of it. And I got a backwards kill cam on one of the Necromancers right on the edge. It's the one where you like hold them by the shoulder, stab them in the back, and then push them. And she pushed him over the edge into the pit at the end of that kill cam. And it was the coolest thing. And those little moments, they are elements of storytelling that make Skyrim so replayable because they're different each time. And watching those kill cams when your character looks super cool is one of the best parts of playing the game, in our opinion. It's just so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so cool. And most of those moments, you're like alone and you're like, oh man, I wish I was recording this. I wish I could share it with people. So it's really fun when we make our videos to just get a ton of those kill cams because it's super rewarding to show you all of those moments.
Yeah. And so aesthetics will oftentimes even prioritize over another piece of armor that would functionally be better technically. But in Skyrim, you don't need to be overpowered to play the game effectively and have fun. You really don't. Your character, your armor slot does not have to be top notch. Like with the way the crafting system is, if you really want to become overpowered, you can do it and just wear clothing with no enchantments on it.
Yeah.
So aesthetics matter a lot to us. It's one of the three pillars. You've got to love how your character looks, otherwise you won't have a fun playthrough. Yeah,
absolutely. And we get some comments sometimes about like, hey, why did you choose this armor piece when this one is so much better? And that's a very good point for the gameplay version, for the gameplay pillar, but in that particular build, we were focusing on cool aesthetics and prioritizing that. A couple examples are like the Ghost of Atmora's bow and arrows. We chose Forsworn bow and arrows, even though they're nowhere near the most powerful ones in the game, but they look so cool and they look really, really good. They fit with the Ghost of Atmora. Another one is the Arcane Beastmaster. Most summoner builds wear robes, flowing robes. A lot of people are like, wait, why is he wearing all this weird heavy armor? For that, again, we realized a beast tamer would wear something really rugged, and we loved the idea of like minotaur-looking armor. And then just another example, the Imperial Spectre uses the Shrouded Cowl, despite not even using a bow. So I think we got quite a few comments on this, like, wait, why on earth are you using that? You could use the Shrouded Hood instead. It adds some magicka. But that just looks really bad.
Stealth.
Sneak, that's what it is, sorry.
Yeah, stealth.
We tried it out and it just looks bad. Like, to us, at least. The cowl looked so much better. And even though she didn't use a bow, we were prioritizing aesthetic.
Yeah, oh, speaking of the cowl, there was a Tamriel Vault example. I can't remember the name of the build, but it was an Argonian Nightblade that focused on alteration, specifically telekinesis, and it was well written, a very interesting character with very interesting gameplay, and then at the end of it, it got to the armor combo, and he used Master Conjuration robes with the Shrouded Hood, and it just looked terrible. Like, I was instantly turned off from the build and put it away. I was like, okay, I'm not playing that. He's using Master Conjuration Robes and the Shrouded Cowl. That doesn't look good. And so the contrast between a well-developed character and with an interesting story and interesting gameplay, but just looked terrible, it was jarring, and jarring enough that I still remember it years later.
And that's like a stool with only 2 legs, right? Mm-hmm. It's got really good roleplay, a really good story, and really cool gameplay, but it looks kind of really bad. So that's another example of how we try to balance those 3 things. It's not an easy balance. And we're going to move into now the second pillar. And this part's a bit tricky. It's functional gameplay. That's the second of our 3 pillars. So it's really fun to get creative with obscure skills and interactions in the game, but for a build to be good, it has to be functional. You have to be able to actually play the game. Obscure skills can be super fun and make the build really interesting, but you have to be very mindful to never cross that line where the gameplay becomes tedious.
Yeah, and this also depends a lot on the player and what the player really wants to do. Like, if you really want to be an Argonian cup collector and go around and collect everything, and that's your gameplay, that's fun. But like, for a good character build, the gameplay has to function to complete the relevant quests. And so one of the examples from like our catalog that kind of toes this line pretty closely is the Foul Alchemist. Mm-hmm. Like, he's a balanced character in spite of having some very obscure skills. I mean, crafting spiders and getting a spider army is very tedious, but he's still functional without them.
Exactly. It was a very, very interesting playthrough that we did with that, and we felt that it definitely made the cut to share because it was so interesting and unique for us, but that is definitely one of the most difficult gameplay related characters that we've ever made.
Yeah, like stealth and poison's work as gameplay, relying 100% on spiders it works sometimes. But not always. And so that was one that had to go through a couple iterations to find a combo that worked, and in the end we're very proud of him, but that one gets kind of close to being a little bit too obscure with the skills.
Agreed. And we found, like, let's talk about exploits a little bit. We found that relying on exploits and just steamrolling the game isn't fun either. Of course, you can make a fork and a knife enchanted with 1,000,000 fire points or something and just steamroll everything. But I don't know. We personally don't find that super rewarding. It's definitely funny as like a meme and stuff. It's really, really funny and interesting. But the game has a pace to it that mods and exploits can definitely ruin the experience of.
It disrupts it. One of the most common ones is reaching 100% reduction in the cost of destruction skills. Mm-hmm. And that one you don't even need to use a lot of exploits for. Just make ultra powerful enchantments on all your gear and suddenly you can cast spells with no cost. And part of what makes a game fun is managing your resources, and we personally don't find that gameplay fun at all. So that's why the Stylite Storm, our destruction mage, we made her use more alchemy instead of relying on these overpowered enchantments to where she could just spell sling with no cost. There's a cost reward balance to playing the game, and it's more fun if you keep the gameplay interesting, at least to us. This is all just our opinion.
Yeah, by the way. For sure.
This is just what we've found.
Yep. And then another one of our builds that uses exploits, actually on the other side of the coin, is the Auramancer. Her entire gameplay revolves around an exploit. We use the Ethereal Crown exploit where you take it off with the Ritual Stone, put it back on, all of a sudden you can summon your undead army again, indefinitely. And yes, you can definitely steamroll the game that way, but we found a way to tie it into the roleplay and into the aesthetic and into her backstory, and it all came together to actually make a really, really fun playthrough. So we're not saying at all that exploits are bad. We're just saying that we try to balance them in specific ways.
Yeah, the Auramancer's really fun on legendary difficulty because you feel the risk-reward all the way through. Mm-hmm. You're very powerful, but so are the enemies. So that's it's a fun way to play the game. We didn't invent that by any means. We just tried to create a character that fit that sort of gameplay And in the end, we're pretty happy with that one.
Yep. All right, so the last category, it's time to talk about the last pillar, which is engaging roleplay. The character has to be complete with their own backstory, personality, and motivations, but to us, the roleplay pillar has a dimension that doesn't get talked about enough. The character has to make sense in the lens of Skyrim.
Yes, so it's one thing to create a character and give the character a unique backstory and motivations, things to do that their character would do, but it's another thing to work those into the framework of Skyrim. Like, as freeing as the gameplay of Skyrim is, the quests are not. Like, the quests are not blank canvases. The character creation is, but the quests are not. And so you have to keep what is available to do in the game in mind when you're creating the character. Because going back to the Argonian Cup Collector, it's a joke, it's a funny build, but it doesn't make any sense. And so the character has to have a reason to do the quests in Skyrim, or at least whichever ones are relevant.
Exactly. We don't do this 100% of the time, but we like to try to tie our characters to quest lines or to quest moments. Like, for example, the Imperial Spectre, again, we wanted a double agent, and we wanted to infiltrate certain guilds, and the reason she did that was to provide intelligence for the Emperor, which of course we had to roleplay completely because that isn't in the game, but it provided a really fun extra thing to do in the game.
Yeah, and roleplay choice for the character is, with it being one of the 3 pillars, a lot of the design decisions that we'll make are based on roleplay because it's very important for that character. So a couple examples, one of them is the Ashland Drifter. We gave her the Steed Stone as her standing stone because it was the sign that she was born under, because it's the sign closest to the actual Star of Azura, and she's a Daedra worshipper. She really she reveres Azura and is very proud of the fact that she's born under her star. And so that was very important. So the Steed Stone was chosen for roleplay reasons, which means we did not need to put any perks into the light armor tree and get the unhindered movement perk. We didn't need it because we had the Steed Stone. We put those perks elsewhere. So we got some comments like, why didn't you take light armor? Well, it's because of this pillar for this specific character. Roleplay was more important to us for this one. Another one was the Ethereal Pilgrim, right? Yeah.
We wanted to make a character who actually has a reason to stop into all the temples of Skyrim. We've had so many characters who go into the different towns and they have zero reason to go into all the different temples. So this guy, he's a collector of religions, he's a protector of knowledge, so of course he would go into all the temples, talk to the priests there, and do their quests.
Yeah, and his standing stone his standing stone choices with the Ethereal Crown was a little interesting. He did the lockpicking one that we roleplayed, a roleplay choice as like a hex that could unlock chests whenever we want, and that was a game or a character design choice based on roleplay.
Yeah. Exactly. And again, we didn't actually come up with that idea. I remember reading it in a Tamriel Vault build quite a while ago. I'm pretty sure it's another well-known thing, but we wanted to incorporate it with that guy. So those are our 3 pillars, and we like to try to follow every one of those when we make a build. And we hope that when you guys make your own builds, that maybe you could try some of the things that we just talked about and see if it enriches your Skyrim experience.
Yeah, and so just going back to our builds, we're going to make more Sky podcasts about this sort of stuff. We like talking about this stuff.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun to nerd out for a bit. And if you've made it this far in the video, thanks for sticking through this with us.
Yeah, this is great.
It's really fun. But for us, with these 3 pillars in mind, there are a few builds that we consider to be among our best, and by best we mean most balanced, where each of these 3 are equally strong and they all balance together to form a really coherent character. And the first of these is our first character ever, the Ghost of Atmora.
Yep.
After all this time, I'm still the most proud of that one.
Yep.
He's just the coolest character. It was funny because when we were creating him, we were doing a playthrough together when we first got a Switch, and we had the skull armor, and I think he was wearing Croesus, the Dragon Priest mask, and like we were fine with that until we just put on a Forsworn.
It was on accident.
It was
I
on
think we
accident.
accidentally equipped it, and we're like, oh my gosh, that looks so
That's
cool.
it. This is it. This is the coolest character ever.
Yep.
And we had already kind of worked up a story for him being from this role-played in island, and we're really proud of him. He's amazing.
The next one, we kind of have 3 builds that we are most proud of, that we feel like land all 3 of these pillars perfectly in the center of. The next one is the Oblivion Sentinel, the one that we opened off Season 2 with. And Tyler talked a little bit about his experience of role-playing as her earlier, and some of the really cool moments from that. But once again, the armor combo is just so cool. And maybe it's just having antlers on your helmet. Maybe that's what makes a cool character for us. But we really, really enjoyed both her aesthetic with the purple tentacly armor, the fact that she basically becomes the next Mirak, and other things like that.
Yeah, and so for the roleplay, she becomes the new Mirak, the actual agent of Hermaeus Mora, and she looks the part. She looks like it, like how she's roleplayed, and she plays like it too. She plays like this wicked, ghostly sword-wielding maniac, and it's just so much fun.
It's great. And then the last one, our favorite, and this might surprise some of you, this one, for some reason, it's actually our least viewed one in the most recent season, which we are kind of shocked about, but it's the Savage Reaper, the Khajiit.
Yes, this one we are very proud of, because he was another one that kind of came together by accident, and he had an interesting roleplay path in the game, being a solo wanderer who steals souls to survive, and he looks like it. He looks super savage, and I think we're also really proud of how unique his aesthetics are with the patchwork of that hood. It really comes out on the beast races, and the Savior's Hide, which is normally kind of hard to make look good because it's a weird looking armor piece, and then with the amulet that kind of fills in the gap between the hood and the Savior's Hide. And then the battle axe just looks super wicked. He came together to make one of our favorite characters.
He landed in the exact center of all 3 of those pillars just perfectly, we found. So Ghost of Atmora, Oblivion Sentinel, and Savage Reaper are our 3 favorites, actually. And we're excited to actually ask you guys what some of yours are. We mentioned earlier that we wanted to send out a survey, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of this podcast, but we're excited to hear from you guys.
Yeah, and then we'll make another Skypodcast with the results of that survey, and we'll make like a list of what everyone's favorites are, and we'll balance them out according to these design pillars, so it'll be fun. There are some builds that we really love, and the playthrough was so much fun. We remember it all this time later, but didn't quite make the cut in terms of these design pillars. Like one of them was the Beastmaster. He was on the shelf for a long time. Originally, he was going to be build number 2.
Yep.
He was going to be right after the Ghost of Atmora.
He took a long time in the oven.
Yeah, he did. And that was one of my favorite playthroughs ever. But it didn't necessarily make for the best video or presentation, I think. It was hard to capture his gameplay in video format.
Yep.
And I'm not sure why, but...
And same goes for the Relic Hunter, who, one of my absolute favorite playthroughs I have ever done on the Switch. I had some of the greatest roleplay moments, just had so much fun playing as her, but for some reason it was hard to really capture that in video format.
Yeah, because like her fun gimmick is her spider companion, and that's really cool, but her gameplay is that of a stealth archer, which we love. There's nothing wrong with playing as a stealth archer. It's a legit way to play the game. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But it also is something that's well known and well understood, and a lot of times you're looking for something unique and interesting, and she's just kind of a stealth archer with a spider buddy. And so super fun playthrough, loved it, but didn't necessarily make for the best build to share with others. But anyway.
Yeah. And before we end this off, we want to give kind of a little shout out, I guess, to some of the other build channels on YouTube. Of course, the kings of builds, Fudge Muppet, and then Bad Company Sarge as well, who has some really great builds.
Yeah, our favorite with these 3 design pillars in mind Our favorite from Bad Company Sarge is the Corsair.
So cool.
Yeah, super cool. It lands all 3 of these pillars perfectly. And then our favorite from Fudge Muppet is the Sand Demon.
Also so cool.
One of my favorite builds of all time.
That's the video that actually got us into character building.
Yes, actually. Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
We saw that they would do an invisibility potion after Whirlwind Cloak and run into the battlefield literally as a twisting tornado.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
We thought it was so cool.
Whirlwind Cloak, invisibility, and sprinting, and it looks like you turn into a little tornado, and then you pop out on the other end of the battlefield, and that was a special move that was just pulled off super cool. So that was a fun moment of inspiration.
And not only was it great gameplay, but once again it landed right in the middle. It had incredible aesthetics, which a lot of other videos on YouTube we feel they land in 2 of those pillars really great, but maybe the aesthetics aren't the best. But the Sand Demon was amazing in all 3 of those. The backstory, roleplay, incredible. So those are 2 of the ones from other channels on YouTube that we just wanted to give a shout out to. If you haven't seen them yet for any reason, check it out. We'll put the link in the description.
And this video, I think, has gone on long enough.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
This ended up being very long, but hey, we kind of have an excuse. We're calling it a podcast, and podcasts are just an excuse
are hours long, man.
Yeah, podcasts are just an excuse to sit down and talk, and so that's what this is. So thanks for listening to the end. We'll be back with more stuff. And keep an eye out for community posts. We do want to make a Discord, and we are going to send out a survey to rank our builds based on your feedback, and that'll be episode 3. So until next time, thanks for sticking this through with us.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you really soon with some other fun projects.
Alrighty.
See you guys next time on Skypodcast.
Skypodcast.
Yeah.